Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So, a very surprising announcement was made today. Maybe it really shouldn't be all that surprising because we are starting to see Xbox really grow over in Japan, and I think this announcement here, it kind of reflects on that, as a big Japanese game was announced today, not only for PlayStation, but it's also coming over to Xbox as well after skipping out on the brand last generation. So we are going to talk about that today and when it releases later on in the video. Also, we did get an update for a Nintendo Switch game that seemingly looks to have pretty solid performance, which I think is rather impressive. So we'll talk about that one as well. Before we jump into the video though, go and make sure to hit that bell notification and subscribe button below. I do very much appreciate the support, but also that way you can keep up to date with all of the latest gaming news for pretty much all platforms, whether that be PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, Ouya, Google Stadia, or whatever. We just like to talk about gaming on this channel, so if you are a fan of gaming, go and make sure to hit those buttons below. Other than that though, let's just go and dive right into the video, starting off with Sony, as they did have their own event yesterday. There was originally a lot of speculation out there that this was going to be some type of state of play where we would finally, yes finally, get that release date for God of War Ragnarok. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, but it was revealed last week that this event was to unveil their new line of gaming headsets and monitors by the name of N-Zone, and that's exactly what they did here. These are designed for both PC and console gamers, unlike Sony's Pulse headset, which was designed for consoles. Even then though, it's still rather clear that console gamers are still at the forefront here, as the N-Zone line closely resembles the PlayStation 5 in how they look with that two-tone white and black design. As for the N-Zone headsets themselves though, they're offering 3 different options, all of which offer 360-degree spatial audio, which is nice to see. You have the N-Zone H3, which is wired and goes for $100 US. Then the H7 if you want a wireless option, that goes for $230. And then last but not least, you have the super premium model that comes included with digital noise canceling, the H9, which goes for $300 US. Now, I will say that this is a rather interesting series of gaming headsets, and the reason I say that really just comes down to Sony's expertise of making top quality pairs of headphones, such as the XM series. So we'll see if that can kind of translate over to their N-Zone gaming headsets here. Now, as for their new monitors though, they did announce the N-Zone M3 and M9. I'm going to go ahead and include a picture here for a side-by-side comparison thanks to Tom Warren over at The Verge. And as you can see here, the main difference really comes down to the M9 being a 4K monitor running at 144 Hz, while the M3 is a 1080p option running at 240 Hz. Overall, though, they do have about everything that you'd want from a gaming monitor, and the M9, that even comes included with an OLED panel, which is really great to see. This, once again, though, I think kind of shows Sony's commitment to PC right now, as they're really diving into that realm just a bit more here with some new peripheral devices. Continuing on though, several fans earlier this year were thrilled when Bandai Namco announced the comeback of Klonoa with a remastered collection, the Fantasy Reverie series. The collection of Klonoa 1 and 2 remasters will release next month on July 7th, so definitely keep an eye out for that, but the producer actually has much bigger plans than just that. In a recent interview, the producer let it be known that his hopes are that the Reverie series will lead to more awareness of the IP and eventually more games entirely. You can actually take a look at his exact statement made here. With Klonoa, since there's been large gaps between the release of the games at the 25th anniversary's timing, we decided to release this title so people can play the original games first. And if this remastered version is loved by the community, there might be opportunities to further expand the Klonoa IP and do other remasters of other titles as well. The first goal and idea behind the Fantasy Reverie series itself is to spread awareness and reignite the Klonoa IP. So there you have it. If you are a fan of this franchise and if you want more entries, there is absolutely some hope here. You know, it's not necessarily a surefire thing or anything like that, but there is definitely a chance of more titles in the future. There is a chance of this actually happening. It really just all kind of depends on the success of the Fantasy Reverie series. So, I mean, I'd say at the very least, definitely support this game, as it could eventually lead to an even bigger comeback for the Klonoa IP. Next up though, let's go and talk about a big Japanese game that was just revealed today, being the next mainline Star Ocean title. Now, this is a long-running popular franchise, and they did announce the 6th installment today titled The Divine Force. It will release later this year on October 27th worldwide for PlayStation, PC, and yes, even Xbox. And that right there was the big surprise, as Star Ocean once again is coming back to Xbox after the 5th installment skipped out on Xbox last generation. So this is the first big Star Ocean title that Xbox fans have gotten since the Xbox 360 days way back in 2009. And as I said earlier, I think that that's a direct reflection of the improvement that they've made over in Japan with the Xbox Series X and S. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, the Xbox Series so far this generation has sold roughly 250,000 units in Japan, which, while that doesn't sound big compared to something like PlayStation and Nintendo, that is an absolutely massive improvement compared to the Xbox One, which sold, I believe, around 110,000 units lifetime. So the Xbox Series has dramatically improved over in Japan with really no signs of slowdown either. They're consistently putting up some pretty solid numbers on a weekly basis, and I think that they'll eventually hit that coveted 1 million mark in the long run. But as you're starting to see here, Xbox's efforts in that region, it is starting to pay off. Again, if you haven't already been paying attention, we are starting to see more and more Japanese support on Xbox. Just this year alone, they've gotten games like Danganronpa, they got the Zero Escapist series, Persona, that's now heading over to Xbox. You got Soul Hackers 2, that's coming later this year. And now on top of that, you have Star Ocean: The Divine Force as well. Then you also have to consider that they've gotten games like NieR Automata in recent years, Monster Hunter, Yakuza, Tales of Arise, Scarlet Nexus. They also got Dragon Quest, which is huge, especially over in Japan. And there has been a pretty common theme with a large portion of these games, and that is that a lot of them was on Xbox Game Pass at one point in time. That's a very deliberate strategy, as Xbox and Japanese developers are really growing that fan base on Xbox right now. Worldwide, really. That's really always been the beauty of Game Pass, where fans, they'll kind of go outside of their comfort zone and try new games and new genres. And I think with Japanese games specifically, it's been a very successful strategy for both Xbox and Japanese developers. So I think when you combine Xbox Game Pass with Xbox's continuous efforts to get more of these Japanese developers on board, we're starting to get to that point where it's becoming much more common to see these big Japanese games come over to Xbox, and Star Ocean is really just another example of just that. You know, last generation, like I said before, Star Ocean 5 completely skipped out on Xbox, so this was a very welcome announcement for all involved. But I think Xbox fans in specific can really rejoice in the fact that less and less of these games are skipping out on Xbox this generation. As for Star Ocean 6 itself though, we did get plenty of gameplay today, and some of its story beats as well. There's actually a separate Japanese trailer if you want to see even more on this game, but hopefully you'll like what you see here. Let me know what you all think about this though. Are you excited for Star Ocean 6 when it releases later this year in October for PlayStation, PC, and then Xbox for the first time since 2009? Speaking of big Japanese games though, that really has been a bit of a trend this month. Square Enix, Capcom, and Atlus, they all made some of the biggest announcements of the month, which is really saying something with all these different showcases going on right now. But one major announcement was made yesterday at the Nintendo Direct partner showcase, being the surprise port of NieR Automata. Now, this port is kind of crazy when you start to think about it, because Square Enix, they do some strange things. I mean, if you told me to guess which game had a cloud-only version on the Nintendo Switch, and which had a native version out of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 or NieR Automata, I'd probably guess that NieR was the cloud version. However, in a bit of a surprising turn of events, NieR Automata is actually the native game here. I think that just kind of speaks to how surprising this port was, and now that it's official, there's been a lot of speculation as to exactly how it will run. What's its performance going to be like, and what about its resolution? Well, we did get some more details today, as Square Enix claims that it will run at 1080p docked at 30 frames per second, while handheld will run at 720p at 30 frames per second. Then the product page also says that the environments will be rendered at 60 frames per second. So all in all, that's actually pretty impressive. Keep in mind that the PlayStation 4 version was running at 900p, though instead it was also running at 60 frames per second. But even then, I mean, that kind of shows you how impressive it is for them to be able to do 1080p at 30 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch. Based on how everybody's reacted to this port so far, I think that a lot of people out there were kind of expecting a lower resolution than that. But to be fair, it's one thing to claim something, while in reality, we still do need to see it for ourselves. There is a chance that they could be using dynamic resolution where they could go below that 720p mark or 1080p mark depending on how you play, and the same thing can be said about the frame rate. Will it be a stable 30 frames per second or not? That still kind of remains to be seen, but it does seem like Virtuos is helping out with this game, which might instill some confidence out there. Virtuos so far has done good work with Switch ports like BioShock, they brought over XCOM, and games like Dark Souls Remastered, so Virtuos does have a pretty good reputation when it comes to Switch ports, and we'll see if they can pull off their magic once again here. And I mean, I really do hope that they can pull it off, because I genuinely do believe that this game, NieR Automata, is an absolute masterpiece. I stand firm on that opinion, and you're not going to change my opinion on that at all, but I do want to see this game perform well on the Switch so even more fans can enjoy it. In fact, if it performs well technically, then I'm probably going to rebuy this game again so I can play it in handheld mode on the Switch OLED. That to me sounds like a fun time, and actually about that, pre-orders are already live and NieR Automata is set at a $40 price tag. I think that that's actually a pretty good price here, and it does include all DLC, so yeah, NieR Automata on the Switch, it's a real thing, and Nintendo fans, if this game really does hold up on the Switch, don't skip out on this game. When I say it's a masterpiece, I mean that. It really is an absolute masterpiece, from the gameplay to the story and to its excellent music and just its overall atmosphere. This is an amazing game, so hopefully this one turns out to be good on the Switch when it releases later this year on October 6th. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, and, well, I mean, I guess this is just a good day to talk about Japanese games, because I asked you all, will you play Persona 5 Royal later this year when it releases for Xbox, PlayStation, or otherwise PlayStation 5, PC, and then, of course, the Switch? And I'm very happy to say that the majority of you all are looking to play Persona 5 Royal, with a total of 62% of you saying yes, while 32% of you said no. The really telling part of the results here, though, was that 48% of the votes came from fans who hasn't played Persona 5 Royal up to this point. I mean, us as a community, we've been saying this for years and years, that a lot of fans out there, I mean, they would love to play the Persona games on other platforms, being Xbox, Nintendo, and PC. And here's kind of the results of that. A large portion of you all out there will be playing it for the first time ever, thanks to Atlas finally growing a brain here. And I have to say that I'm really looking forward to the response from them when these ports inevitably sell well. I mean, back when Sega and Atlas ported Persona 4 Golden over to Steam, they were apparently shocked that this game sold well on Steam. Like, what are y'all doing over there? I mean, it was clear as day to fans, so I don't really know what their analytics are telling them, but I do hope that this sets a new precedent for Atlas games going forward. Maybe this will help them finally realize that if you put your games on more platforms, that does equal more sales. I mean, I know it's shocking and everything, right? But yeah, let's go and hope that Persona 6 will be multi-platform as well when that does eventually get announced. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.